Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in. And I'm Shweta and welcome to our Summer Speaker Series today. And let me tell you a little bit about what the Summer Speaker Series is all about. It's a platform where we have speakers come in from various different fields of health and wellness and give us their insights and tips on how to live a healthy, happy life. And the whole goal was to create more awareness around health, so something that can help us take good care of ourselves, our families, and the community as a whole. So I'm very excited to introduce our speaker today. We have Dr. Janani with us. And before we start off, let me just introduce her to you. And Dr. Janani is, she's a PhD in neuropsychology and also the program director and health coach and facilitator at the Whole Brain Health Initiative. She founded RISE in 2016, and she practices as a mind-body health coach and a wellness speaker. She works in preventive health by teaching brain fitness, stressless, and Qigong. And she also has a book called The Living Fearlessly, Building Inner Strength Through Self-Reflection. And it's available on Amazon, both in India and US. So do take a look. I'll be also giving all her contact details and her website details in the video description below. So thank you so much, Janani, for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to have you join us for our talk today. And
yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great. It's a pleasure. So let's get started. Like all of us know, the topic for today's conversation is going to be brain health, stress, and Qigong. So let's get started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Janani, you teach brain health, brain fitness, Qigong, and stressless, right? So let's start with brain health. So can you tell us something about all the things that we can do in our lifestyles to keep our brains in good health?
Yeah, so this is actually the focus of the brain fitness program that we run as a series of classes that go on throughout the year. Mm-hmm. We try to run at least one class per week, sometimes every 2 weeks, depending on the community that we serve.
Okay.
And we have 4 main pillars that we cover. One is nutrition. Nutrition it covers everything from what you eat, how you eat, and when you eat. And then there's also cognitive exercises. So what you do with your, so there are lots of puzzles and games, and meditations feature under that category as well. And then there's also physical exercise and how that impacts the brain. There's quite a lot of research to show that physical exercise is extremely good for keeping your brain healthy. So these two, physical and cognitive exercises, end up promoting more blood flow to the brain and increasing what we call neurogenesis. So more neurons that are able to connect in new ways that happens because of the increased blood flow. So even as we age, it's never too late to start learning something new or changing the ways that we do things. And that is helped by these 2 pillars. We also cover other lifestyle related habits, like how much do we laugh, how social are we, and how well do we sleep, when do we sleep, what's the quality, what can we do to improve our sleep. Because these 3 elements as examples of lifestyle habits that we have can play a pretty big role in the way our brain health kind of stays or maintains or even improves with age.
Right, very true. Yeah. So let's talk about like stress, like what stress really is and how does it impact our brain health, because that's something we go through like on a daily basis, right? Like when it comes to stress.
So when we talk about stress, it's important to kind of understand the difference between eustress and distress. So it's not that all stress is bad. We do need stress to operate well. For example, if you're going up to speak in front of a crowd, you could get like freaked out by that stress, or you could use that stress energy to enhance the performance of what you do on stage, either singing or speaking. So stress is not always a bad thing. It serves a very good function to help us deal with danger and deal with difficult circumstances. So in small quantities, in small dosages,
Yeah.
that system coming on and off is not a problem. I think the real problem starts when we have prolonged stress, and that leads to high levels of cortisol, which wears down the ability of our brain to function properly.
Right.
And that ends up disrupting synapse regulation, and we end up stepping back in terms of our sociability. And research has shown that there's quite a big link between how social we are and whether we have significant memory decline over age. So the more sociable we are, the less lonely we are, the better it is for our brain health and actually overall health too.
Right.
So just a little bit of an aside here, loneliness was talked about as the biggest epidemic in the US, of course, before all this COVID
Yeah.
stuff, but
Yeah.
it is considered as dangerous or even more dangerous than smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
Wow.
In terms of its effects, its associations, I'd say correlations with various inflammatory conditions. So that's why, like, the relationship between stress and sociability has an impact on your memory decline, dementia, right?
Oh.
So so that's how it's like, it's quite well linked if you look at it. So when you have chronic stress, it can lead to the shrinking of the prefrontal cortex, which is right up here. And this area of the brain is responsible for concentrating, decision making, impulse control, judgment, and it then sets the stage for more serious illnesses. Because
Yes.
this is very important. This is what we gain as we grow up. From, like, kids don't have much of a prefrontal cortex. It's not
Yeah.
fully developed, so they don't know what they're doing. They can't control themselves the way that
Right.
grown-ups can.
Mm-hmm.
So and so these are the ways that stress impacts the very structure of the brain, and then of course the function too. So some of the ways that we can reverse the stress process in order to not fall sick with memory decline, dementia, is to exercise and then meditation. We covered some of these, laughing. And then
Yeah.
also the important part is to organize your time, manage your time more effectively, and make sure that you know what's coming up. You have a routine, and you can rely on that. That tends to minimize stress too. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I notice people get overwhelmed by is when you have a lot of distractions. You're trying to do something, some kind of task,
Uh-huh.
and then you keep getting like these messages that come up on the side, and then you go to your phone, you want to do one thing, and then there are other messages, you check them and you forget why you went to your phone in the
I
first
think,
place.
yeah, I think phone nowadays it's like a major stressor.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So the idea of deep work, of fully concentrating on one task at a time with no other interruptions, and designing your life around you in a way that doesn't require you to constantly check emails, messages, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that also minimizes stress a lot, so that you're not
Mm-hmm.
hyper stimulated, right? And
Right.
to just slow down, that
Yep.
helps with stress too. And of course, if you want to talk to a friend, or just talking out loud about it, that helps quite a few people too. So
Yeah. Those are like excellent tips, like something that we can and we should actually really implement in our day-to-day life. So like small changes here and there, they really tend to have like a big, larger impact when it comes in the
right.
long term effect of it. So that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so that was actually kind of my next question. I was talking about like the stress management techniques that what would you suggest that one can do at home. But do you have anything more to add to the list that we just talked of?
Um, I think that stress management is relatively personal, in the sense that there are lots of things that work for some people that don't work for others. For example, if
Mm-hmm.
I tell you
True.
to write a diary, like a journal or something,
Mm-hmm.
you might not be into writing, so it
Yeah.
might not work for you.
Right.
But meditation might work, for example, or
Mm-hmm.
you might prefer gardening, and that's your
Yeah.
meditation, right? And
Right.
so meditation, art, and this is where the expression arts therapy comes in. Like, there's a lot of choices, different techniques, a variety of techniques that you can explore and then find what works for you.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I do totally agree. There's no one fit model that fits everyone. So I guess each one of us has to like kind of figure it out for themselves, or like get some professional help who would like help them figure it out and just try and use it and reap the benefits out of it. So, and end of the
Yeah,
day, that's what is important. So
the in the stressless class that I conduct, we actually go through some of these techniques one by one, exploring them at for one whole class or two classes, like part one, part two, so that they the people who come in, they get a really solid introduction to trying the exercise, understanding how it works on your brain,
right.
and they end up leaving the class quite happy. But I always tell them that it's not it's not about how you feel after class. That's
Right.
important too, but it's about how you translate that to your life. Like how much of it can you apply,
Exactly.
and can you really prioritize your health enough to make that change?
Yeah, and like really practicing it too, right? Like consistently.
That's a
That's
key.
important too. Yep.
Yeah.
True. That's cool. And let's move on to qigong. So you do teach qigong, right? And how does that fit into this whole stress management and brain health part of it? So if you could explain a little bit on that.
Yeah, Qigong is for a lot of things. It's essentially for self-healing across the board. It's not relevant only to stress or brain health, but I mean, given that that's kind of what I do, I can kind of relate it up.
Yeah.
So many people don't know what Qigong is. It's just to explain for them. It's a if you know yoga, it's like the Chinese version of yoga. In the underlying principles, they talk about very similar concepts. They share a lot in terms of the theory and history, but they look completely different. So you'll see those people in the park with the slow movement, that's Tai Chi. Qigong looks a little bit more like Tai Chi than like yoga. So that's just to give you something to relate it to. It's meant exclusively as a way to heal after. So you go out, you fight. Tai Chi is a type of martial art. And then you come back. Qigong is the other side of the coin when you use it to self-heal, right?
Okay.
So it's a low impact exercise. It has a lot of emphasis on circulation in the body. And it opens the joints out. And because you use your mind, you use your attention, you imagine certain like colors or movement and sensations, and then you're actually combining that with complex coordination. So okay, for example, when I was doing my master's, one of the projects that I was working on is imagined music, playing an instrument versus actually playing an instrument.
Okay.
And in an MRI scanner, they don't look that different.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
and that's where the brain part comes in to Qigong, because there's a lot of movements. You can't not everyone can reach their toes, right, in a certain posture.
Yeah.
But if you can imagine that, the neurons fire that way so that you actually get the benefits of actually touching your toes. So, and at some point you will reach there, right?
Yeah.
So it's, there's a lot in terms of the coordination. There are quite a few, like if I were to be able to show you like these type of movements, which involve quite a lot of what do you call impulse control and coordinating right with the left side of the body, upper half to lower half of the body. So all of this is related to brain health and keeping the brain stimulated. And stress, well, I think it's like if you go for a Qigong class and you come out, if you usually feel like you just had a very, very good massage.
Oh, wow. That's very refreshing to just hear. I'm like, okay. I guess everyone should really try to like experience. I mean, to get the whole experience out of it, you need to try it out, or else you can't really.
Yeah, and because there's a lot of emphasis on breath, slow and deliberate breathing, and that kind of calms the heart rate, and that lowers the stress reaction. So, I mean, and because you're opening out muscle groups and joints that you normally don't work on, and it tries to reverse some of the bad habits we have with posture. And with all of this, it ends up making the body feel more like just, rather than like that. So, and the benefits of Qigong are they reach even outside of the practice. So you end up noticing that you're much more tuned in to like what you're wearing, your hair, if it's pulling on your forehead, like what you're eating, is it enough? Is it good quality food? You become much more mindful of your body, of your life, of your health. And you start to like listen to your body when it says, I really need to sleep right now. You don't just say, no, but I need to get this done, right? You say, okay, like my body wants sleep. I'm just going to listen and go to sleep, right? Or I'm going to stop eating because it said enough, stop, instead of finishing.
I think, even like in our traditional yoga, that's what it is, right? Like being more aware of yourself. End of the day, that's when everything changes.
Yeah, in fact, I'd say yoga and Qigong are on a continuum. And if you do Qigong, I mean, once I started doing Qigong and learning more, it really made me able to unlock more from my yoga practice. So I was able to understand what these different postures and breathing are doing in my body. And I could even feel into, like, there's a meridian system, right? Which is the same actually across Indian and Chinese. So your certain asanas stretch certain meridians, and you feel that when you have a blockage in that meridian, yoga is, so actually the more advanced you get in Qigong, the more it looks like yoga. It gets quite tough in terms of the weight bearing exercises and how much core strength you need. So people think Qigong is only for old people.
That's what I was about to ask you. Since you mentioned it's low impact, like, so, I mean, are there any age restrictions? Can everybody do it, or like, how is it? Or like, is it just for, like, because you see most of the times it's the old people who really practice it. So can kids do it? Would teenagers be interested to do it? because sometimes that's the whole thing. Like, people will be like, okay, I like Zumba because it has music and all that, something which is peppy, and this looks more slow and deep. So
it is, I would say Qigong is more a form of meditation in that sense. If you're able to enjoy that slow pace and awareness that comes from meditation, then you'll definitely enjoy Qigong. Children, I find, like the movement because it's smooth, and as they are growing, like 2 to 3 year olds, they'll try to imitate what you're doing. Like, I have a little kid who tries to imitate my movements, and you can see her coordination improve over time as she tries to mimic some of the movements. So it is great for kids. I'm not sure if teenagers would be interested just because their pace of life is so different. But would it be good for them? For sure.
So there's no age bar, so anybody and everybody can.
Yeah, everyone can do it. And in fact, I would say it's one of the most accessible exercises, even for people who have disabilities, who can't get out of bed. There's something in Qigong for everyone.
Yes, that's really great. So I have a few questions from our audience that came to me through social media like Facebook and Instagram. So let's move on to those. So the first question was about what kind of foods are good for the brain? So if you could tell us something about that.
Yeah, so I had an entire season for brain health and food. So one of the things I teach is what we call the mind diet. It's based on the Mediterranean DASH. It stands for Mediterranean DASH. DASH is a type of diet that they came up for stopping hypertension. So they combined that with the Mediterranean diet as an intervention for delaying neurodegeneration. So this diet is particularly well studied, but it's more observational studies. They didn't actually do controls and put groups and things like that. So you have to kind of take it with a pinch of salt in terms of the extrapolations. But there are 10 main do's and 5 don'ts, and
Okay.
I can tell you what they are, and then we can discuss it a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
So the do's, and this should come as no surprise: green leafy vegetables.
Yes.
As many times of the week, per day of the week that you can. Other vegetables also at least once every day. Beans around 4 times a week, berries 2 times a week, nuts 5 times a week. Then we get into poultry and fatty fish. For vegans, they don't have to go for that. You can even get the omega-3 supplements instead of fatty fish.
Okay.
Olive oil, whole grains, and wine. But wine, and it's very specific that for women it's 1 glass a day, and for men it's 2 glasses, and there's a specific ounce.
So is this red wine what they generally?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But we'll get back to this, right? And then there's the don'ts. So the don'ts include red meat, cheese, butter, and margarine. These all of these are try to have like less than once in a week or once in 2 weeks, because they're very high in saturated animal fats.
Oh, cheese, butter.
So right.
Okay.
We love our cheese and butter.
Yes.
Well, many people do. So, but yeah, red meat, cheese, butter, and margarine. These are 3 of them. Butter and margarine in one category. And then the other 2 should come as no surprise either. Pastries and sweets. We all know sugar is a problem.
Yes.
But it's not just sugar, it's also refined flour. There are quite a few books that I've gone through that talk about the relationship between gluten and brain fog and Alzheimer's later on. So pastries and sweets in one category, and the last one is fried foods. So trans fats and so fried foods as a whole. So I like this list because it's based in scientific literature. So when they say berries, they don't say fruits like a general category. They say berries specifically because they know that berries have been studied with regard to antioxidant properties and neuroprotective function.
Yes.
So
all our strawberries and blueberries and those categories. Yes.
Load up on those.
Yep.
Enjoy those. Yeah. The only thing that I'd have to say for this is I don't think it's comprehensive enough because, for example, they don't talk about caffeine or tea. They don't emphasize the teas that are good for the brain. So green tea has been shown to be good. Ashwagandha, brahmi, even rosemary is really good for. They're in fact studying rosemary for an active component, which could be used as an anti-Alzheimer's drug. So they don't really talk about those type of other things that people consume. Caffeine also not really. Fermented foods, which plays a huge role in the brain-gut axis. They don't seem to cover that. So it's, and when we come back to wine, right, like I said, some people have as soon as they drink just a sip, they have this flashing hot sensation in their body, right? When they drink any alcohol, not just wine. Yeah. So I would really recommend that people, and the nice thing about this diet is even like 50 to 60% compliance still has a pretty good effect on slowing down these problems, right? But I'd say the emphasis needs to be on watching your individual reaction and what your body needs.
Yes.
Nuts, if you're allergic, you obviously don't have it 5 times a week, right? So, keeping those things in mind.
Yes.
So this is the best we have in science right now.
Yeah. So seeing what works for your body and include those in your daily diets. That's a very good list to follow through, I would say. That's nice. And so my next question was, I had this question regarding what can one do to prevent Alzheimer's in old age?
Okay, so anything that keeps your brain active, like we talked about nutrition, cognitive exercise, physical exercise, lifestyle habits. So all of these will help prevent Alzheimer's. There's one more interesting study that I want to mention here. They did this 40 hertz audio-based pulsing for rats that were rats or mice induced with Alzheimer's, and they saw it clear up over a period of time, like a few weeks, I think. This is a study from MIT. I don't remember all the details, but they did repeated studies where they used audio 40 hertz clicks, and then they used video, like visual 40 hertz pulses. Then they used them together, and they noticed the difference in their brain. The plaques started to clear away.
Wow.
So yes, so this is why it prompted them to do a human-based clinical trial, which will end, hopefully the COVID won't delay that, but it will end in 2023.
Okay.
And once we have the results of that trial, we'll know whether the 40 hertz frequency can be used for Alzheimer's reversal as a drugless, possibly drugless intervention.
Yeah, that would be like a great, if it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, I think some news came out about it last December, and someone was saying, I'm going to get Christmas lights that blink at 40 hertz, and that'll be the healthiest Christmas that I've had.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we hear a lot about those, I don't know if that's related. Those music that, like the different frequency levels and the music, if you listen to particular music in that frequency range, like especially if you're meditating or something, you can get like added benefit out of it for relaxing and those kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess it has some kind
of it's related because the brain has different waves at different activity levels and consciousness levels. So by introducing that frequency through the ears, you're actually inducing that state. Even if you don't feel that way, it starts to make the brain go that way.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling sleepy and you listen to I believe it's alpha waves, then you're going to be able to focus more, being a little bit more creative.
Right.
And if you're feeling very, very kind of hyped up and you want to relax, theta would probably be better. Right. So
yeah.
Yeah.
That would be nice if some drugless way to really take charge of this whole. It's because Alzheimer's, it's like the most dreaded disease, or especially something that old age people really have to face, like knowingly, unknowingly, even though if you're doing so many things, and which doesn't have a solution right now. So that would really be something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so that makes me. Since we were talking about so like you mentioned, there were so many lifestyle changes that we can really follow through for like good brain health. So there are a couple of scenarios that generally we see that happen. Like there is someone who is wanting to adopt those changes, but he or she is not able to like kickstart. And there's always a different category of people who know that their lifestyle isn't that good and they need to make changes to improve, but they just don't seem to be interested or motivated to make that change. So how do you handle such kind of scenarios in your e-coaching, or when you have clients come to you for any guidance or consultations?
Yeah, that's a good question, because this is something I struggle with in terms of my clients once in a while, because not everyone comes of their own will. Sometimes they're recommended through family, friends, or family themselves. Like my husband told me to come. I don't really want to be here.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's difficult, because so when you have someone who's willing to make a change, right? And they just need the information or the guidance or the accountability, something to get them to start. A health coach is a good person to have on your team, right? Because our job as health coaches, as you know as well, is to provide that support, accountability, provide resources, follow up with them, and make sure that they remember to keep health as their top priority, because people have a lot going on and they have so many other people to take care of. They have their jobs and they have no time for their health. And it's funny, I heard this quotation from someone the other day. They said, for people whose health is fine, they have 1,000 problems. And for people whose health is not fine, they have only one problem.
Oh, wow.
So it's actually, it comes down to that. I mean, you can't do much without your health, and if you don't have it, that becomes a core focus. But the idea is to get to it before it gets in the way of your life, right? So if
True.
you're able to see that, okay, so either through family history you're more prone to getting certain kinds of problems, or because your doctor recently told you that you're pre-diabetic, or whatever, something like that, where you have a warning sign, you should make a change. You're maybe a bit more willing now because you don't have a diagnosis yet, but you're heading that way.
Yes.
Then you may need a health coach to help you through. If you're well informed and well empowered enough, you can start with simple steps on your own and make gradual changes. Some people don't need accountability. There are quite a few people who have managed the entire recovery process on their own.
Yes.
But it's always good to have someone who has had that experience. Like, as health coaches, we see lots of different kinds of people struggling with things, and we can help them with behavioral change in a way that doesn't seem daunting to them. Right? So that's the answer to the first question. The second question, when a person is not willing to make changes.
But yeah, I think especially in all families, there's always like this one person who is like doing everything, eating everything, not exercising. And when okay, eventually at some point you're going to get there, which you don't want to happen, and you want them to make the change now because what could be the repercussions of it. So in that case, like what would you say?
Right. And so this is, so I'd say if the change doesn't come from, the willingness doesn't come from yourself, it's not going to happen. That's the unfortunate answer. But what you can do as a family member of someone who doesn't want to make any changes is give them that support and the love, and possibly try to find ways of improving the joy in their lives. Because often where this problem of I'm not willing to change comes from is the sense of I need to feel in control of my life, and I don't like that you're telling me what to do. Right? I don't like feeling disempowered. I need to make my own decisions. Right? There's a certain rebelliousness that comes out whenever anyone tells anyone else what to do, especially about health. Right? So if there's a way to increase the joy in the person's life, they may start to have a change of heart. In their own mind, there might be a shift in which suddenly they have the emotional energy to make changes. So when you're sick, for example, and you're so depressed about your sickness, you're not going to be able to get out for a walk. You just can't even get out of bed sometimes, right? So you need either where does your joy come from? It could come from being around people that you like, or doing certain activities that you like, or a combination of those. But find a way to add joy, and suddenly there is more energy to make these larger lifestyle changes, because they take energy. They take a lot of determination, focus, will, right? And they require a lot of support around you. People around you need to know you're trying to make an effort here. Don't give me that muffin. Don't bake that in front of me, right? So it's like you really need a support system to buoy you up to that level where you're suddenly ready for that change. Right? So it's not a lost cause. Yeah, it's just a matter of getting them mentally ready. And it's more from a place of acceptance and love that you approach them, rather than, if you don't do it.
Those things will never work if you try to drag them into it. Oh, do this. And I guess starting small. Like what works for me too is take baby steps towards it, rather than just start with this one whole big chunk. Start this major lifestyle change. Start today. Start maybe exercising for an hour every day, which is never going to happen if you don't exercise any time of the day. We start with let's go for a 10-minute walk, and then maybe gradually build up on it, and that way maybe have them. And when they start seeing, the change and the benefit out of it, they would themselves try and get motivated to.
It tends to become almost no, I wouldn't say addiction, but definitely start to look forward to it once you start
Yeah,
doing it.
exactly. Yep. I guess
So it might
more
just,
of those endorphin stuff that kick in. So
right.
yeah.
And it might be like in the beginning, and I don't want to get too like manipulative here, but you can you can kind of create that physical activity to come from a place that doesn't sound like exercise. So they don't have to go to the gym. You could just
Yeah,
go
not like a
boating.
chore thing. Yep.
Yeah, you
Make
could
it
go to the
interesting.
like a rowboat in like that lake somewhere near Mountain View. You could go for a trek. You could say, let's have a picnic out at Rancho at this specific spot. So you have to walk there, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
there are lots of things that kind of involve physical activity, but you don't call it exercise.
Right.
Like, let's go dancing, for example. If it's a girl, often more than
Yeah.
a boy,
Yep, yep.
let's go dancing. You get a lot of heart pumping, even sweat, if you just dance, and people are having fun. So the
Right.
idea is not to do it as a chore, but find a way to
Yeah.
make it fun.
Enjoy it, and that's
Yeah.
when it would be really beneficial too. Like if it's a chore, you may not be even able to sustain it for that long, right? And we are looking for
Right.
a sustainable kind of a format or something that stays on, rather than just being like a 1 day, 2 day thing. Because when it comes to health, it's a very active process. You can't just do, oh, I'll just do it on Monday, and then rest of the week you don't do anything. So it has to be like
Yeah. Like
every
I
day
had
you have to work.
a carrot once. Why
Yeah.
am I not okay?
Yeah, so yeah, it's like, oh, I got my vitamin A and everything. Oh, that's yeah, that's something. That's what I really like. Even when coaching, I guess even you must have experienced that, like having them follow through and doing it consistently is what counts, rather than
Right.
just doing a 1 day one-off thing. So yeah,
Mm.
so those were like great
Yeah.
tips. And I had a few questions on. Did we miss anything? I'm just trying to look up. Yes, on Qigong. So we already discussed this, I think, like how Qigong can be done for kids and there's no age restrictions. But do you want to talk to us something about how does Qigong impact mental health? Because mental health, like we know, it's such an important thing, because most often it's just when it comes to health, the first thought is always about the physical fitness and exercise and all that. But mental health, I mean, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? So it
That's right.
becomes
Yeah.
really critical to take care of your mental and your physical health when it comes to, like, health is more holistic. That's what I say. And you can't just focus on one area of anything. So how does
Right.
Qigong, or how can it help us like improve our mental health? If you could tell us.
So it can definitely, because it is a mind body practice, and I think this is a unique thing about Western medicine or Western science is it's the only system in the world that dissociates mental from physical.
Oh.
And in most other traditions of health, they always look at it as part of the same thing. So what the Western science is coming to now is what they call a mind-body connection, as if there are two separate things that need to be connected.
Right.
And when I started out as a health coach, my focus was mind-body health coaching. So while other people would be personal trainers or specialized in nutrition, I took the more mental side of things, just because through my research, I saw how important or how powerful meditation can be on the physical body, right? So Qigong, if you look at it that way, it has a much more holistic view of health in general, and you can't really separate them, and it doesn't need a connection. There's no connection involved. It's all there in the same system, right?
Right.
So what they have is, it's not just Qigong, it's the entire system of traditional Chinese medicine, and also in Indian it's very similar, is that they have certain emotional spectrums that are associated with different organ systems. So when they say, and this is where there's a problem where we're not able to directly translate the terms. So when they say the heart has heat, or the liver has empty heat or something, it's not actually go look in the heart or the liver. It's the system is much more, it regulates various different aspects of your mind as well as your body. And they just call it the heart system. And the heart is involved in it, of course, but it's not about the physical heart.
Physical
right?
heart, right?
So when you have that, for example, anxiety would be classified under like warrior. That is regulated by the spleen system. So sometimes if you feel like you can't trust, that's part of the spleen, stomach spleen type of system, right? That those channels that are paired together. Anxiety can sometimes also reflect in the sense of manicness, high energy, like right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the heart system, right?
Okay.
And then you have depression, which comes more into the lungs, as related with grief. And the way you breathe changes when you're depressed versus when you're feeling fine. So there's this emphasis on exhalation, like, and like, yeah, they are inhaling and exhaling, but the emphasis and the amount of time they spend with and it's not just a peaceful exhale of a long type relaxed exhale, it's a defeated exhale, right?
Okay.
So there's a breathing pattern associated with each of these emotions. And what Qigong does is it works so much with the breath that it definitely, you come out of it feeling quite different to when you went in. So, and consistent practice, if you know, like if you go to an acupuncturist and they tell you you have issues with these specific meridians, and in your Qigong practice, you're supposed to, actually, it's not like you target only that meridian system. You're supposed to look for balance throughout the body and or the whole system. And when you have that balance, these things just work themselves out. You find blockages, you open them all out. Because when you unpeel one layer, there's one more layer. Often emotions aren't so straightforward. It's not just, you know, oh, I'm angry all the time. It's not just anger. You're angry because you peel that away because you're sad about something, right? And you don't want to be sad, right? You don't want to be sad because it looks like a weak or vulnerable emotion. So you end up being angry instead, right? Sometimes anger is a coat or shielding emotion for fear. You don't want to admit that you're scared of something, and then you just react as if you're protecting something through anger. So there's a way that they're related, and I'd say there's a lot of literature within Chinese medicine that talks about this, and they have a very I'd say we could learn a lot from their view of the world and mental health, especially.
Right. That's really good to know. So what I hear is it would be really helpful even for like depression or anxiety kind of things, right? So you could like practice Qigong along with if you're on medications, but still you could have this running in parallel. So you could kind of get the benefit out of it and bring about a good change for yourself. So that's really interesting. I guess we are running short of time, but let me see if I can get one. I think we answered most of the questions that we had, but yes. So yeah, there was this one thing, especially around COVID, which I get to hear from all parents. So when you mentioned about kids and how to enhance brain health for kids. So if you could, like, especially it's like summer vacation right now. So what kind of activities and stuff you can do with kids, and especially now because people like both parents are working from home, and then how do you engage your kids and what kind of stuff they could do so that you don't have a lot of screen time also, but a good balance between the two. So any tips there that you could
yeah, I totally see why that's a struggle, because I struggle with it too. Yeah, so I mean, when we talk about kids and brain health, because they're in that learning stage of their lives, they're always challenging themselves with new things anyway. And it's that active time of life. So I think one of the things we need to emphasize is that they also get enough sleep. Many children don't go to bed on time. They don't get the amount of hours they require for regenerating and resting, not just their brain, but their whole body, right?
Right.
I think it's highly underrated. Sleep is very underrated. And if we just knew, like there are studies that talk about if you have school start just 1 hour later, how much the grades improve. right?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of things about sleep and kids that is related to brain health, but it's also related to heart health. For example, after you have the what do you call it? The summertime daylight savings. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
When you have daylight
That's
savings,
another stressor I heard, like whenever the time changes.
yeah,
Yep.
you end up with more heart attacks. When you have that sleep deprivation, you have to make up for that Monday. You end up having more heart attacks and car accidents and things like that.
Yeah.
So sleep is one of those things for kids, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, sugar is one of the big things for children because they go to these birthday parties and they're getting served pizza and cake. And I'm like, okay,
Yep.
once a year maybe, or like twice a year, that's okay. Okay, we can deal with that. But every weekend, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't make it like a everyday food.
Right. And they look at vegetables like, huh, what's that? You know, that cannot be, because the brain requires a steady state of glucose level in the blood to function well. So when you have sugar, you get off, sugar get off, sugar get off. You're pumping the brain in this way that doesn't optimize for brain function at all.
Right.
Do you have to be extreme about it and say no sugar for my child? Not necessarily. You can find there are lots of different treats that involve less refined sugars.
Yeah.
And if you get involved in making them at home, you're actually doing your child a big favor for their future long-term health, right?
Yeah.
The other thing, as you were talking about, staying away from passive entertainment and instant gratification, right?
Yep.
This is good for brain health because it affects their attention span.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of kids start with screens at such an early age,
Right.
and they don't know what it is to be bored. And
Exactly.
boredom is actually good for you.
It's really
It's good
important.
for
Yeah. You don't really want them to get bored. Okay. It's like, that's what I hear a lot. You know, people are like, especially now when everybody's working from home and then you have these back-to-back meetings and then you don't have that much of time to look what your kid is doing, and okay, take a tablet and or watch something on TV and then just don't disturb me, that kind of a thing. But
right.
yeah, like you said,
So
it's not that
like if they have more time for free play, right now with other people is going to be hard, but in nature, that would be really good for them. To be bored in nature is actually a good thing because they can explore, look at those little insects, you know,
right.
whatever it is. There's something beautiful about that boredom. It's not like zero stimulation. It's stimulation at a lower level, which opens their world, right?
Yes.
Other than that, brain games. And
That brings us to the end of this conversation. But before we end, Dr. Janani, do you have some advice to our viewers? Like, what would be your top 3 tips for living a healthy, happy life and for good brain?
Yeah, I have a quotation for you. It's a Tibetan proverb. It is, in order to live a long, healthy life, eat half, walk double, laugh triple, and love without measure.
Wow, that's that's nice. That's like a math formula there. If we could like make an equation and just remember it, but that's really nice. It makes a lot of sense. Yes.
There's
Yeah,
quite a
we could
few
just follow through.
people coming out with similar formulae now. Like Dean Ornish comes up with the same, pretty much the 4 pillars of his work
Yeah.
with lifestyle reversal of certain problems. It's
Yes.
basically the same thing.
Uh-huh. That's good. That's nice. So, and yes, before we end, if you could tell us something about your upcoming projects, like what are the programs that you have coming up?
Yeah. So currently, because of COVID, there's not much on like in-person classes going on. So I'm working on online brain health classes that will come out hopefully in the next few months. And I'm working on this is with the whole brain health that I'm working with. Um, and the other thing that I'm working on more independently with Rise is overcoming autoimmunity, especially sarcoid uveitis. So this is something that I overcame personally, went through that journey, and there's a lot of learning along the way. And I feel like if I shared that with other people who were suffering through the same thing that I went through, would really help them deal with all the different kinds of issues that come up in that struggle. So
Right.
those are the two programs that I'm putting together, and will probably come up in the next few months.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's nice. So that's really interesting. We're really looking forward to it. And thank you so much once again for joining us today. It was really a delight to talk to you and answering so many of our queries and being patient enough to
Oh,
to
thanks for having me, and it was fun. This was great.
yeah. And yeah, and all the best for all your future ventures. Hopefully, we'll have a talk on some other topic some other time, because I know it's such a vast area, like the whole stress and brain health and qigong especially. We learn, I mean, so many new things about qigong. I guess people must not be that aware of, but they'll definitely pick up a few things here and there and really use it in our daily lives and live more nourishing and healthier life.
Right.
So yeah, so till then, stay home, stay safe, take good care of yourself, and yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
meet. Yep, we'll
All the
meet
best.
when you're back to US. We'll catch up again.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right. Thanks a lot, and take
Thank you
care.
so much. Yep. Bye.
Bye.